Hello, today we're going to look at the meaning of of. So if I see the word of in maths, what does it mean? And also the word reciprocal, what does that mean in maths? Now that may be a new word to some of you, so if you've never heard the word reciprocal before, I'd suggest you say it a few times, because until you actually say a word, it won't become part of your vocabulary. So if you haven't heard it out loud now, say the word reciprocal 5 times and then it becomes yours. Off you go, say it when you've said it, then you can carry on with the video to the next page. Okay, so let's start with of. So we've got 2 questions here, 3/4 times 8 and 3/4 of 8. And 3/4 multiplied by 8, we've already covered multiplying fractions, and I could draw out, because of commutativity, I could actually say that 3/4 times 8 is the same as 8 times 3/4, and I could just do out 8 bars of 3/4. Or I could rewrite this question, which might be easier. And I could write 3/4 multiplied by, well, 8 as a fraction is 8 over 1. And if I just do the straight multiplying across and I don't simplify to start with, 3 times 8 is 24, and 4 multiplied by 1 is 4. Well, I can see that 24 is divisible by 4, and so my answer is 6. So going through that again, just for you to remember, I'm multiplying. This written as a fraction, my denominator would be 1. I've multiplied my numerators, my denominators, because I understand about multiplying fractions. And 24 divided by 4, because a fraction is about dividing up, is 6. So we're now going to find 3/4 of 8, and to do this I draw out a bar, because I want to find 3/4. So I divide my bar into quarters because my denominator is 4, and I want to find 3 of them, so that's 3/4. And here my bar underneath, that's equivalent to 8. Now remember, when you're using this here, it is important to find out what one piece is worth before we worry about finding 3/4. That's where so many students go wrong. Find out what 1/4 is worth, then find out what 3/4 is. Don't work that out to start with, you work out what one piece is worth. So to work out one piece, because there's 4 pieces here, we're dividing. Remember, we're dividing, we're sharing. 8 divided by 4, because I've got 4 pieces I'm dividing my 8 into. I'm sharing it by 4. I get 2. And that means each of these is a quarter, and 1/4 of 8 is 2. I have 3 of them, so I then do 3 multiplied by 2 is equal to 6. And if you notice here, this 6 here and this 6 here, they're the same. And we're just seeing from this that it's looking that, therefore, that multiplying and the word of are the same things. So 3/4 multiplied by 8 is 6, and 3/4 of 8 is 6. So the big thing, and I'd say to you, write this down in your maths book and put it in a box, or write it down somewhere so really you can keep looking at it, that multiply and of are the same thing. So when you see them in a question, if I say 3/4 of 8, I actually mean 3/4 multiplied by 8. Or, to use another word, the product of 3/4 and 8, because product is multiply. So I could say this is the product of 3/4 and 8. So multiply, of, product, they all mean the same thing. And it's about having that vocabulary in maths to understand what words mean. Just like in English, you have words, and the words have similar meanings, not identical, but similar, and you need to have a big vocabulary. You need that vocabulary in maths, because with that vocabulary will come your understanding. So saying that again, so we've clearly got it: multiply, of, product, all the same things. Write it down before we move on. Okay, you should have written that down. Let's now go on to the next slide where we've got 3/4 of 2/5. Now, 3/4 of 2/5, I could go about drawing a diagram of 2/5 and then finding 3/4 of it. Oh, I think I'd find that quite hard to draw. But I've learnt something new. I've learnt what of means, and I now can rewrite this as 3/4, and instead of, I can write multiply, because I know that of means multiply, and that's of 2/5. Brilliant. So now my bit of knowledge, my knowledge of and multiplying being the same thing, has now helped me to access this question. And to do that, what I now need to do is just use my knowledge of how to multiply fractions. So to multiply fractions now, I would write 3 multiplied by 2 is 6, and 4 multiplied by 5 is 20. Is that enough? Have I finished? I hope you're saying no. I hope you're telling me that I need to simplify my fraction, that I need to write an equivalent fraction, because you can see a common factor of 6 and 20. That common factor is 2, so I can divide my numerator and my denominator by 2, and my answer would therefore be 3/10. And remember, these are equivalent fractions, so 6/20 is equivalent to 3/10. But this is the simplified answer, and this is just another fraction with the same value that is not simplified. So in this question, we've used the word of as being multiplied to allow us to complete a question. So you now have that knowledge. So when you see this, you may prefer to do it like this. Make sure that's written in your book. Make sure that of is a multiply. If you need to write it down again, do, and then we can move on. Good, so you should have written that down. If you haven't, make sure you press pause, then press play when you have. And we're now going to look at what the reciprocal is. So the reciprocal. I want you to say that word again, reciprocal. Say the word, you own the word, you then can start using it. When you start speaking maths, then you start understanding it. And that's why I want you to improve that ability to say something. Now here, the reciprocal of 4 is 1/4. And maybe later, when you're sitting there with maybe your parents, or maybe whoever you're going to eat dinner with tonight, tell them that the reciprocal of 4 is 1/4. Do they know what that even means? Explain it to them. And at that point, your learning and your understanding is going to improve so much. Share that mathematical knowledge. Get everyone loving maths. So the reciprocal of 4 is 1/4. Now, so if the reciprocal of 4 is 1/4, let's have a look at what's happened here. 4, and now I've written 1 out of 4. So what is the reciprocal of 2? Well, if the reciprocal of 4 is 1 out of 4, the reciprocal of 2 is 1 out of 2, which is 1/2. Do you know what the reciprocal of 3 might be? Are you going to press pause and have a go at them all now, or do you want me to go through B? Well, here is B if you're not too sure. The reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. Okay, do press pause now. I want you to write down what C and D is, what's the reciprocal of 11, and what is the reciprocal of Y. Can you do this in algebra? Right, press pause, press play when you've done them. Okay, so we're going to go for the reciprocal of 11. That is 1 out of 11, or 1/11th. And the reciprocal of Y is 1 out of Y, or 1 over Y. There we go. You've just done the reciprocal. So it's making the 4, which is a denominator is a numerator, because it's 4 over 1, 4 out of 1 usually, is now 1 over 4. So we've kind of swapped our numerator and our denominator round. Let's have a look at the next one. Oh, this is different. So do you notice what's different here? Here I had an integer and I'm going to a fraction. Here I've got the fraction and I'm going to an integer. So the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3. Wow, so the reciprocal of 4 is 1/4 and the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3. So this is now saying if I've got 1/3 and I want the reciprocal, it's 3. Okay, so if the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3, what's the reciprocal of 1/4? Well, the reciprocal of 1/4 is 4. Okay, press pause, have a go. C and D are a bit challenging, but what I'd say to you is write something down. At the worst thing that's going to happen is you'll get it wrong. You'll know that, but I won't know it, and nor will anyone else. But if you have a go at things you're not sure of, and you actually write something down, you have what's called a mathematical guess. It's not a guess because you're thinking as you do it. You just might understand a bit better. The person who doesn't guess, that's the person who's missed that opportunity. So I want you to press pause and I want you just to think, well, what could 2/3 be? Don't worry about getting it wrong. No one's going to know. But you just might get it right, and how brilliant would you feel? It's not bad to get it wrong. That's where you've learned, by the way. So, press pause, have a go. When you've written something for all 3, press play. So, here we go. 1 over 100, the reciprocal is 100. Right, C. C was a tricky one. C, I kind of just snuck in there a bit. 2/3, the reciprocal of 2/3. Well, what are you going to do? Well, I know what the reciprocal with 2 would be on the top. That would be a half. And I know what the reciprocal of 3 on the bottom, that would be 1/3. So that would be 3. The reciprocal, and can I just say, I really shouldn't be writing equals because they're not equal. 1/4 doesn't equal 4. And I think I've done that back here. No, I haven't, thankfully. So the reciprocal of 2/3, that there is 3 over 2. Ooh, did you get that? Have a think about it. If we look, the 2, which was our numerator, has become our denominator. And the 3 that's our denominator has become our numerator. I'm going to explain something important about the reciprocal in a few more slides. And 1 over P, the reciprocal is P. Okay, where next? Here are 6 questions for you to do. I'm just going to change one of those, this one here, because that was the same as the one on the last slide. I'm going to change it to 5/7. Now, if you're not sure, just before we start, I want to go back. The reciprocal of 4 is 1/4, and the reciprocal of 1/4 is 4. So notice that the reciprocal of 4 is 1/4, and the reciprocal of 1/4 is 4. Here, the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3, and the reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. So these two are reciprocals of each other. They make a pair. This is the reciprocal of that. That is the reciprocal of this. So let's remember that and have a go of these. Press pause, and when you're ready for the answers, press play. So the reciprocal of 2, 1/2. The reciprocal of 5, 1/5. The reciprocal of 1/3, 3. The reciprocal of 1/8, 8. The reciprocal of 1 out of A, 1 over A, is A. And the reciprocal of 5/7 is 7/5. Now, did you get those right? If you did, be very chuffed. If you didn't, don't ever be disappointed. You've just learnt something. If you have got one of those wrong, that's a moment to learn. Go back. Why did you get it wrong? How could you get it right next time? What was the thing that you didn't quite understand? Make sure you understand it now. Make sure you do your corrections. So pause and do them now. When you're ready, we continue. So, multiplying a number and its reciprocal. And I want you to write that in your book so that we understand what we're doing. So let's think about this. I'm going to have the number 1/4. What's its reciprocal? It's 4. Well, I know 4 1/4. Think about a cake. That's equal to 1 whole. Right. So 1/4 times 4 is 1 whole. Right, let's try another one. 2 multiplied by its reciprocal. What's the reciprocal of 2? The reciprocal of 2 is 1/2. Well, 2 times 1/2, that's 2 lots of 1/2. So if I had a half and a half and I put them together, I'd get a whole. Wow. I've got 1 again. Let's try another one. 2/3. What's the reciprocal of 2/3? The reciprocal of 2/3 is, did you get that right? 3/2. So that, if multiplying fractions, 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 out of 6, that's 1 whole. What do you notice? What have you just noticed when you multiply a number and its reciprocal? Well, we've noticed that we always get 1. So that's really an important thing to realise, that when you have a number multiplied by its reciprocal, you always get 1. So we've just learnt 2 things in this short time. We've learnt what the reciprocal of any number is. Well, any fraction or integer. I haven't done decimals. They're not much more difficult. And we've also learnt that when we multiply that number by its reciprocal, the answer is always 1, which is 2 quite amazing things to have learnt in such a short time. So, fill in the boxes. You've got to multiply this number by something and get 1 for all 3. Press pause. When you're ready for the answers, press play. And make sure you have a go at every question, because that's where the challenge comes from. And as usual, I'm just going to quickly change one, because that one, I keep writing the same questions over and over. So I'm going to make it more interesting and write 5/11s. So off you go. So hopefully you've done those. So if you remember, going back to the previous slide, the big thing, we always get 1 when we multiply a number and its reciprocal. So if I want to get 1 here for my answers, I need to multiply these numbers by their reciprocals. If you hadn't realised that, press pause now, get them completed. Hopefully you're there. So here we go. 1/4 multiplied by its reciprocal, it's 4. 3 multiplied by its reciprocal, 1/3. Here, multiplying by its reciprocal, 11/5. And here, we're even doing algebra now, 1/a. If you've managed to do that, that is really, really good. Well done. Fantastic. And one last challenge, because it's always good to challenge ourselves when we're doing so well. What's the reciprocal of 1 3/4? Now, this is a challenge because you're looking at that going, oh, this is breaking the rules, but it's not. What I want you to do first of all is write this as an improper fraction, which you know how to do. So, pause, draw a diagram to help you imagine what that is as an improper fraction, and have a go. So, write it as an improper fraction, go. So here's my diagram. I'm going to, my denominator, by the way, is 4, so I'm dividing into quarters. That denominator is so important. I'm going to draw 2 bars because I've got more than one. I've got 1 whole one, and I've got 3/4. So this is 1 3/4. So as an improper fraction, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7/4. So that is 7/4. Now, can you write the reciprocal? Press pause, write it if you haven't already. If you've written it already, you can carry on with the video playing. So the reciprocal of 7/4 is 4/7. So if you got that answer, very, very well done. But notice, you ask for the reciprocal of a mixed number. Turn it into an improper number, then do the reciprocal. And then it's fine. You have all these skills, and I want you to remember the things you should know by now. Of means multiply. And the reciprocal, you should know what the reciprocal is, and you should also know that when you multiply a number by its reciprocal, you always get 1. And that's everything for this video.